Hello, everyone. Welcome to Ordinary Humans, Extraordinary Choices, a podcast about ordinary humans who've navigated periods of their life in extraordinary ways. The goal of this podcast is to show you that you can begin making extraordinary choices at any stage of your life to start making progress towards your dreams, and that you never have to accept that today needs to be like yesterday was. I'm your host, Vamsi, and today's ordinary human who's made extraordinary choices is named Carter. He's an old friend of mine. We met in the New World MMO about 1.5 years ago when it came out in September 2021. He's also an INTP in the Myers-Briggs like me, similar to our last two guests, so I'm wondering if there's starting to be a pattern here because that's interesting. But Veneral is also a student of data science, so he may be able to go into some of that and explain how I may just be seeing patterns where there are none, and it's just, statistically random chance invariance and streaks which are normal. Other than that, Carter has also had some interesting exposure in the political space through his mother and her work, and we'll get into that, and his entire family connection. His family values are really interesting to me because I have struggled with family values in my life, where his whole family kind of works together, does things I think with real estate development and projects together, which is all fascinating to me. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. Veneral, how are you doing?
I'm good. How about yourself?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right. One thing is that it's not data science, it's data analytics.
Okay.
But they're closely related.
Mhm.
As far as if you want, you mentioned how I can go into like the seeing data where there is none. I think you need more data points to determine that,
Yeah.
if we're being honest.
So after 100 podcast episodes, you think if like 70 of them are INTPs, you'd be like, okay, there's something going on here?
Well,
Or
I mean, you could probably do even like 20 and then
Mhm.
start to see if there's a pattern there, especially if it's like 70% of them. That's pretty high correlation with just how many different types there are. That's because there's 60 different types.
Yeah.
However, I mean, there could be a correlation right there, or but it's really hard to tell with just the limited data that you have right now.
Could you explain causation to us?
Um, so basically, it's in this case, it would be the kind of people you attract causes you to have those kind of people on your podcast.
Hmm.
Um, so because you attract more people who are INTP, you're
Hmm.
more likely to have those kinds of people on your podcast.
So if
And
you
that's
had to
just
make a
because it's the people you're
guess,
talking to.
okay, if you had to make a guess, what might it be about me? And I'm an INTP as well. So what might it be about an INTP that would attract other INTPs?
So I'm not entirely familiar with all the Meyer-Briggs stuff.
Hmm.
If I had to guess based on that, it's the way of looking at the world, and you value the people who look at the world similar as you do. And
Hmm.
maybe that doesn't mean same values, it just means they analyze it in the same way.
Right. So how they interpret and experience the world is similar, even if the conclusions they come to end up being vastly
Yes.
divergent. Okay. Interesting.
And I mean, again, I don't know a lot about Myers-Briggs, so I could be off on that, but
Hmm.
that's what, if I had to take a guess, that would be it.
Hmm. Because I want to ask, when we played New World, there was something about me that drew you to me, that drew Justin to me. Justin was the two podcast episodes ago guest. We went for 7 hours. He is INTP as well. He has a lot more Myers Briggs knowledge. But what do you think might have drawn you to me or drawn me to you and made it so that we chatted a lot, we innovated together, we played the game and we discussed things and we improved on things?
So at the time, I mean,
Hmm.
obviously there was a set of coincidences that led up to that, such as, being in the same guild, being roughly at the same place when we started talking.
Hmm.
Like we were at similar levels at that point. So that kind of just led to us starting to talk. And then I think from there the stuff that we were talking about, I found interesting.
Hmm.
So I just, I kept talking. I mean, I think it was a set of coincidences, not necessarily that, and
Mm.
that led up to the opportunity for us to start talking.
Right. And if I remember correctly, I guess the reason I ended up naming the guild that formed from those connections, Engineering Serendipity, was because I was being so transparent and open about everything. And I believe I was making a spreadsheet to try to document the economic changes over time in various territories in the New World game.
Yeah.
And you jumped in and I think you joined a voice channel where I was screen sharing my work. And you said something like, "Oh, I'm a student, I guess not in data science, but in data analytics,"
Yes.
right? And you said, "Hey, I can help you with that spreadsheet. I like spreadsheets. I can help you even." What was some tool that you offered? There was some data. parsing tool that you talked about?
So I talked about utilizing a database if we ever got the need for that,
Okay.
because then we would be able to query the data and
Mm-hmm.
it'd be much easier just view over time versus
Mm-hmm.
having them all in an Excel
Mm-hmm.
spreadsheet. I mean, you can do the Excel spreadsheet. However, as you get more data, it gets a bit more
Harder.
complicated to query those.
Mm-hmm. And I think someone mentioned Prometheus or something. Was that you?
No,
From
that was not me.
Okay, and then I ran it by you, I think. And I think Airtable is a tool that is something between a full database and
Yeah.
Excel, where it's got some more database expansibility and features expandability. Okay, interesting. But yeah, so I guess to all the listeners out there, you can probably tell we're both a big bunch of nerds, you know? Like, this is what I love thinking about and talking about. And maybe that's an INTP thing. I don't know. I'm curious about that. But yeah, Veneral, let's move on to more real life and things that interest
Okay.
you. So I guess my first question would be are there any periods of your life where you feel that you navigated them in a way that, many other people would not have, or that surprised yourself, or where you were closer to your true values than you usually were? Something like that.
I'm just gonna need a minute to think about
Yeah, yeah, of
that.
course. Take your time.
Um, I think honestly, like probably like right now, if I'm
Mm-hmm.
because I like just recently, it's just everything that I've been doing has been closer to how I want to be versus how I was.
Mm.
Because before I was just kind of stuck in a cycle of a loop, doing like the same stuff over again. Like I wanted to do more stuff. I just, I was struggling to do that stuff.
I
And
remember. Yeah.
I think now that I'm actually like working towards some of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I mean, I can go into detail about what that stuff is if you want me to. Um,
I'm remembering some things. And by the way, I want to say that that resonates with me because I think, because I've been telling this to people, I feel like in the last 4 years, I've made more progress towards my true self and understanding myself and living in alignment with my values on a day to day basis than the first, like, I don't know, 20 years of my life or so, you know?
yeah.
That's what it feels like. Like, yes, the first 20 years, I learned how to read, I learned how to walk, I learned a lot of important fundamental skills. I learned how to think about basic things. But I also think that school crushed my curiosity, right? And the new world experience and reading books at, a few previous jobs and then now this, like this whole period in the last few years, leaving jobs. Every time I've left a job, I've noticed that I've grown as a person. I've gained more freedom in the way that I think and my energy and my motivation, all these things. So I guess my question for you is, what is it that you'd like to be seeing yourself doing to navigate the next 6 months of your life on a day to day basis? How do you want your days to start to become progressive and connect so that 6 months from now you can look back and say, yep, I spent that time well?
So I want to start doing more creative stuff
Mm-hmm.
because that's something I've always struggled to get doing, but I've always loved doing.
Mm-hmm.
And part of it was me always wanted everything to be perfect, and I've coming to terms with, not everything has to be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's really been helping me just start to work on stuff because like I can look at something that I wrote, be like, that's not perfect, that's okay. I'll go back and change it later when I
Mm-hmm.
have or when I finish the entire thing, rather than continuously working on the same, let's say like in a book, the first chapter and constantly rewriting the first chapter. Let's finish the entire thing and then rework the first chapter
Mm-hmm.
of the book. And I feel like for me that's just been a huge, at least for me, getting things done.
So practically overcoming perfectionism and that
Yes.
need to get it right the first time. Seth Godin has talked about this, right? He said there's no such thing as writer's block. It's just that because you don't get talker's block, right? We have
Yeah.
plenty to say. You could just write down exactly what you say. You could write like you speak. And funnily enough, writing like you speak is often better than how most people try to write. Like when I try to write, I end up writing too fancily. I write to impress rather than to express, right? And it's not communicating well. But I'm getting better at that.
It really depends on what you're writing though, because you want to
True.
write as if you're writing like first person or third person limited, you
Hmm.
want to write as if that person is writing it,
Hmm.
because that's you're looking at their thoughts.
Exactly. So you then need to become an actor, a method actor, right? A role player. You need
Yeah.
to be able to put yourself in the shoes of your characters and imagine. And I did some Minecraft roleplay when I was 15, 16, and I really got
Okay.
into it. And it got to the point where I felt like it was collective storytelling because we were all typing, right? We weren't talking.
Yeah.
But we were basically. it felt like my character would say things that surprised me, which I found weird because I'm the one writing them.
Mhm.
And yet, I think I got so into character that he would do and say things that surprised me. And
Yeah,
that was an
I think
interesting experience.
that's huge because that's your character coming to life separate from yourself.
Right.
And I think that's a big part of it is that you have to be able to separate your characters from yourself in order for them to actually be
Yeah.
more uh, personal to everybody because obviously no one has the same experiences that you do.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you write every character as though through yourself, then every character is going to feel kind of samey.
Exactly. Yeah, and you don't want that because then they just fit tropes. And this makes me
Yeah.
realize because I did that with just one character, and there were many people in that community who created multiple characters. And I realized that I took some things very seriously. Like I focused on the one character, I wrote an extensive backstory. I thought about his emotions when he was a child, how his mother left him, all these other things. I thought about what he went through and what that might mean and how it might have shaped his personality. And then I think what ended up happening is also there was a rule against metagaming, which is basically you
Okay.
don't want
Yeah.
to make decisions out of character with knowledge that you have that your character does not have. Or you don't want to do things like try to save your character when they're going to get hurt, but they wouldn't know how to save themselves, you know? And so
Yeah.
I noticed I was doing things that were causing my character to get into trouble. I was being too curious, I was being too inquisitive, and I was learning from them at the rate that my character would have. I wasn't learning from them so quickly that other people, because other people in the community were telling me like, "Hey, your character's messing up a lot. Like you should, you know, it doesn't make sense." But I told them, "Look, that's how he learns. He needs to mess
Yeah.
up and learn, right?" And I think my character was in a way an extension of my real personality, but maybe more in alignment with some of my true values. He was more
Yeah.
brave, more, and now that I think about it, funnily enough, maybe that has helped me become in alignment with my values today because I have him as a model. I have
Yeah.
someone who is not afraid to challenge authority or to get hurt or to make mistakes and learn from them or to be socially awkward. So for you, but here's the thing, if you're George R.R. Martin writing Game of Thrones, you've got to do this with tens or hundreds of characters.
I mean, the books take them decades to write, so I mean,
True. So for you, what's your process to get into character?
so I for the first draft, I just start writing generally.
Mm-hmm.
And then as I continue, I really start to like get a feel for the characters, and I feel like, okay, how would they react to this? And
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really asking myself that. It's I know how they'll react because I'm starting to get a feel for them. And then once I have that, I sort of start going back and reworking the stuff I've already written
Mm-hmm.
to better fit that character.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the reason I do that instead of, doing all the like character building beforehand is it makes the process feel natural to me. And like I'm not coming up with an entire character right at the start cuz I mean it's not bad to do that, but for me I'd rather get into the process of writing and then go back and edit it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that makes sense. And I think that is what Seth Godin's thing was. He was saying like when someone comes to me and says they have writer's block, I ask them, where are your 10 like unfinished manuscripts, your 5 failed novels, your your stack of poetry, your notebooks, your scribbles, your doodles, your whatever. He's like most people like if you keep writing bad stuff, eventually good stuff will come out. But
Yeah.
if you're afraid to even start writing, then and you want to get it perfect the first time, then you will never write. So I
Yeah.
told you about NaNoWriMo, National Novel Writing Month.
Mhm.
This keyboard in front of me, my mom bought it for me when I was 17 because I wanted to write my first novel. And it's only 50,000 words. And all I did was write 17 or 100 words a day. And I got to 50,000 words in a month. And so
Yeah.
I realized, wow, this daunting thing of writing a novel is way easier than I thought, to just do.
Yeah.
And it was actually hard on a daily basis to have that habit. I used to have to sit down and struggle a
Yeah,
bit.
but I
Yeah,
mean once you get that habit going, I mean it
yeah,
gets a lot easier to do it afterwards.
sure. Although after the 30 days, I didn't continue, right? So there
Yeah.
was, it wasn't sustainable in some sense. And now
I mean
looking back and reading parts of that, it's very cringe to me. Sorry, go ahead.
it's also maybe you just yeah, it's good to do that, but maybe you just don't have an interest in writing stories that
That
much, and
way.
that
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah. And then I started a blog and I wrote philosophy and other things and thoughts, right? So yeah, it
yeah,
may be that Robert Greene tells this story. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's a writer.
mm,
He wrote the 48 Laws of Power and a bunch of other books now. He started writing when he was 38 and he was dissatisfied with his life. I think he was writing in media, he was doing something in film. Before that, he was a journalist early on in his life, in his 20s. And he tells this story of how he wrote this piece, this article, and his manager invited him to lunch. And he was very proud of the piece. So he was like, "Oh wow, my manager's going to compliment me and praise me." And then the manager over lunch told him, "You should really just get out of this business. You're not cut out for writing. Your writing's all over the place. You should find something else to do." And the manager was trying to be helpful, because when you tell someone young that, they have a chance to start a new career. Even if you
Yeah.
tell someone who's 50 or 60, they can start a new career, really, realistically.
I mean,
Is it
at 60,
yeah.
you're pretty much retiring at that point.
It depends. I mean, I know people who want to work until they're 75 or
Yeah.
80, and as the internet age progresses and more of the work is intellectual and less laborious, and yes, you may run into sorry, what is it?
Dementia?
Dementia or other Alzheimer's, schizophrenia. But you can do things earlier on in your life to try to offset some of those impacts,
Yeah.
exercise, diet. Um, and then and those aren't guarantees, right? And besides, you can always do something with the tools that you have available. Like,
Hmm.
there are people who've written books by blinking their eyes, right? When they couldn't do anything else, they were
Yeah.
paralyzed. So if you want to do something, you can do it. You want to express yourself, you have a story to tell, you'll find a way to tell it. There's people are playing Elden Ring with EEG machines hooked up to their brain, right? So we'll figure out a
That
way
one
for
was impressive.
yes.
I saw that. Like
Uh,
that.
yeah. Also, the person who played Elden Ring on a banana and a dance pad and like all these, right, like creative things that people are doing. I love that that's becoming a meme, right? It's becoming a culture of spreading creative ways to play this difficult game and succeed. Um, but Robert Greene, the story he told was, he didn't take that guy fully at his word. He realized he was not cut out for journalism, not that he wasn't cut out for writing. So
Yeah.
he continued to write, but he quit journalism because he realized he doesn't like bureaucracy. He can't deal with 20 or 30 people reading a piece and trying to change it in little ways. And I'm going through this with my esports startup right now. I won't go into too many details since it's an evolving situation. It's still confidential, but long story short is I can tell there's a value misalignment. And I'm realizing that it doesn't matter how much money I think I can make, negotiating who I am will always kill me faster than running out of money or anything like that.
Yeah.
And if I can find a way to be myself and belong wherever I go, this is all Brene Brown's ideas, by the way. If anyone's interested,
Okay.
I'll link some of those videos or whatever. I've been reading some of her books recently as well. But like she talks about, you don't want to negotiate who you are. You can negotiate a contract, you can negotiate what you do. But she spent most of her 20s and 30s and even early 40s, I think, negotiating who she was. And now she's done with that. She's realized. So that's a lesson for me, right? I'm still in my late 20s. I have time. I can choose to change and decide now that I will not negotiate who I am. So yeah, we'll see where that goes. I want to get back to what you mentioned though about like where do you feel you fit in all of this? Because I just brought up like 5 or 6 tangents as I tend to do. Um, with how would you describe your current understanding of what you love, your identity, your passions, your values? What are the parts of yourself that you would not negotiate?
See, that's hard for me.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because I mean, I haven't had, or at least I haven't had many chances to negotiate myself. So
Hmm.
maybe I just come to something where I have to, and maybe I just don't.
Hmm.
Um, I am very stubborn,
Hmm.
though, so I imagine that I probably would not negotiate my values for whatever. Because I do, like, for example, I pretty much always tell the truth. I don't like I'm not gonna tell you that something's good when it's not. I see no point in
Hmm.
that. Um, and like, yeah, I know people mostly don't do that, but I mean, for a lot of the time, it's like, how can something get better if everyone's lying about it, you know?
Hmm.
And so I don't negotiate on that like at all.
I love that. Honesty is this thing that I've been trying to build over and over time and it's been getting a little bit better over time. But I can tell that I lie to myself a lot. There's webs and webs of self lies, self deceit, wishful thinking, trying to distort reality to match what I think it should be because I'm unhappy with it. It's like if I have a problem, and this is from Elliot Temple's essay Lying. I will link it in the description, the show notes. But if I have a problem with something and I don't want to solve it or I don't know how to solve it, but I also don't want to be unhappy about admitting the problem's existence, then I will distort reality to fool myself into thinking the problem doesn't exist, right? And that's
Yeah.
self-deceit. And that self-deceit propagates as lying to others. Because how can I tell the truth to others if I'm lying to myself? The
Yeah.
truth, I can't, I can't interact honestly with reality. And I think honesty is a selfish thing. Like, it is extremely self-beneficial to be honest. However, it also benefits the world. It's win-win. You want to be honest if you want to have an impact in reality, because you need to interact honestly with reality to understand it and develop solutions to problems that exist in reality.
Yeah.
You, so yeah, I'm on the same page. Funnily enough, Shiva Fang, Justin, previous guest, who is also INTP, he values honesty. So does Ben, another INTP. He values honesty. You can tell that he's willing to be critical. He's willing to tell the truth. He did say he was willing to say white lies. I disagree with that. I told him we'd
Mhm.
talk about that in a future episode because we were just discussing marketing in that episode. What do
Yeah.
you think of white lies? Or say, like, so you get a gift from someone, you don't like the gift. Do you just imply that you like it anyway, or do you tell them the truth and say, "I'm sorry, this isn't for me. I appreciate the thought, but you can take the gift back and refund it"?
So
It's yeah.
generally, it doesn't depends on how well I know the person, like their relationship to me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Generally with like gifts, I'll just say thank you. I won't say I won't say whether or not I like it.
Okay.
Yeah, I try to avoid that because
Interesting.
I mean you do get, especially like from family, you get gifts that you probably will never use.
Mm-hmm.
Um, However, that's not really I don't it's they also don't it's not really their fault that they got you those gifts because they do think they'll like it.
Right.
Um, and maybe I'm not really lying to them saying like, "Oh, I love this." I say thank you. I try and I should do show gratitude because ultimately it's still the nice thing.
Mm-hmm. You're
Um,
grateful for the thought and
yes,
the intention, right?
yeah, and
Yeah.
but like when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to like someone cooking food and like saying, "Oh, this is amazing," like generally I'll say like what it is, like
I didn't
because
like it.
like
Yeah.
yeah, like I'm not gonna lie, like I tell that to my mom all the time whenever she makes food. It's like because like I'll tell her like I didn't like this. I know you're a great cook, and I just personally don't like this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not because, whatever she made is bad. It's just because I didn't like the ingredients in it.
Sure. Yeah.
And like I try, like for that stuff, I just try and, keep like, so it's not me just like saying that, oh, I hate this. It's like, because that doesn't help.
Mm-hmm.
You have to kind of say why as well. Because otherwise,
Yeah.
it's never going to get better.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's so personally, I would want to tell people I don't like a gift. Um, and that's not. I don't believe that it exists on a zero sum scale with
Mhm.
gratitude. I think you can both be grateful for the intent and also honest about the result. Because personally, I want to cultivate relationships with people who would want to know whether their assessment of me as a person and the thought that went into their gift was accurate or not, right? And I generally don't want to cultivate relationships with people who want to be lied to.
Okay.
And I view not telling them I didn't like the gift as a lie by implication, because I have a reasonable belief that if I say thank you and nothing else, that they will probably expect me to use that gift. They will believe I liked it. They might expect me to be wearing that scarf the next time they see me and it's cold, for example.
Yeah.
And then if I'm not, they might notice it. And all of these things that propagate from not telling the truth, not
Yeah.
being proactive about disclosing. And that's why I've realized that the more honest I try to become, the more my standards of honesty increase and the more I understand about how complex and deep honesty truly is. Because I think most people, and Elliot Temple says this is in his essay Lying as well, most people are dishonest about honesty itself. So I believe, and I could be misquoting, but I believe his view on honesty in that article about lying is about making a concerted effort to the best of your ability to have your thoughts match reality, meaning you're actually trying to learn about reality and understand it. You're not, you're doing your best to not fool yourself, to avoid bias, or to at least notice when you are doing those things and then try to improve on them. And then to also make your words match your thoughts. So first, your thoughts match reality, so you're less, lying to yourself less over time,
Yeah.
and then your words match your thoughts, so that what you're telling people is closely what you're thinking, and also you're putting some effort. This is maybe I added this myself, but you're putting some effort into understanding what their perspective is, right? You're empathizing with them, and you're seeing what information do they have access to, and if I were in their shoes, what would I want to know if I were them, and I want to tell them that. So, for example, an example I often use is if I tell you, hey, this book, I think it's a great fit for you and the problem you're having, you should check it out. And I leave it at that. That implies that I've read the book. So I would be dishonest
Yeah.
if I don't tell you that actually I only read the Wikipedia page for the book. I haven't read the entire book. But based on the Wikipedia page for the book, I do think it applies to your problem. You should check it out. And then, nice thing about that is you might check out the Wikipedia page first to see what I saw. Then you might decide to go see the book or not, or you might watch a talk about the book and so on.
Yeah.
So those are just examples where I think proactive disclosure is helpful. Yeah, what are your
I would
thoughts on that?
especially agree with you there.
Mhm,
Because like a lot of times you like, you read like, the little summary that the book provides you on like either
mhm,
like on the back of it, or if it's a hardback on like the little whenever you flip open the front or the cover.
mhm,
Um and like yeah, a lot of times it does give you a good idea of what's in the book.
mhm,
However, it doesn't give you the full idea of what's in the book, and so maybe you'll read that and like, oh, this is a great book
mhm,
for so and so because they're dealing with something similar.
mhm,
But meanwhile, once you actually get into the nitty gritty details, maybe it's almost completely different.
mhm.
Um, so yeah, I do think proactive honesty would be good, especially in that instance.
Exactly. Yeah, and I get that this becomes hard with family, right? Because you don't choose your family, right?
Yeah.
You can't choose whether they're people who want to be lied to or not and all these things. But I have found that weirdly enough, like, because I'm living now with my brother and his wife, right? And I remember I came here a year and a half ago just to have lunch. I missed their wedding because it was COVID and I was taking precautions. I did not want to be at massive events. I had heard of, I think that was back when Omicron was spreading, and I had heard of
Okay.
people attending weddings and dinners and things like that, and definitely outbreaks happening. So I was like, no thanks, you know? And successfully, I have managed to avoid COVID for 3 years. I've been ordering in food and doing all these things. And I'm the kind of person who likes being at home anyway. But I did go to their house for dinner. I met my I guess my brother and his wife's parents. So what does that make them? Like my parents-in-law or my grandparents-in-law?
No,
I don't.
I don't know how that one works.
Or
I'll be
yeah,
honest.
that's weird. Probably parents-in-law, sort of.
Well, because
Is that a
I know
thing?
they usually say that for the
Only if I'm married to someone.
spouse.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, not for the
Um,
brother of the.
yeah, I don't know exactly how that works.
Let's
I
say
mean,
parents-in-law once removed or something. Why not?
because I know
Yeah.
I talk to
Mhm.
my brother's wife's parents sometimes too.
Yeah.
I mean, whenever I see them,
Hmm.
I've actually picked blueberries with them before.
Nice. That's a very common activity here in BC in Canada, picking
Is it
blueberries.
really?
Yeah, there's lots of blueberry farms out here.
See, there's not a lot out here, but there's one by them that they love, and I was
Hmm.
with my brother and his wife, and they were
Hmm.
driving to meet them, so I went with them, and then we ended up picking blueberries for a few hours.
Nice. How was it?
I mean, you're picking blueberries, it's fine.
It's
I
not that
mean,
interesting. Did you have
no.
interesting conversation?
um, yeah, I mean, we obviously weren't conversing the entire time, but
Hmm.
yeah, I
Fair
can't.
enough.
This was a while ago, so I don't remember exactly what we were talking about. I did have fun though.
Okay, you
I do
did have
remember
fun.
that.
Do
Yeah.
you remember enjoying it? Okay, that's good.
Yes.
Um,
But it wasn't
mhm.
necessarily because of the blueberry picking. It was because of
The company.
circumstance. Yes.
Yes, of course. And that's the interesting thing. You can enjoy company in silence. I'm slowly learning this because I talk a lot, I listen a lot, I ask a lot of questions. But I'm also learning what it's like to just spend time with somebody in silence doing something together.
Hmm.
One sec, let me just remember where we left off. We talked about honesty.
Yeah.
Then we went into, oh, you can't choose your family. Oh, right. I was telling a story about my brother and my parents in law once removed, and my parents were also with me. And this is all Indian culture. So,
Okay.
from my understanding, Indian culture, there's quite a bit of status and hierarchy and respect and tradition. So, I asked for my parents in law's names, and then I called them by their first name. And then my dad was embarrassed on my behalf. And I've noticed this happens a lot. For example, I was very strange at that meeting, at that lunch and the get together, because I had decided in advance I'm going to do my best to be myself. I'm going to do the things that I'm most comfortable with. So I took a notepad, for example, and I was taking notes during dinner, right? Based on what people were saying. And I was asking questions based on my notes. And these are things most people do not do at family gatherings, right? So I looked very weird, but I wasn't worried about it. But because I empathize so strongly with people and so naturally, I usually don't choose to empathize, it just happens. I could feel my father's cringe, secondhand cringe, right? He was cringing on my behalf, basically. He did not, from his view, and he would keep making snarky comments or sarcastic things, or he would jump into the social situation to try to protect me from saying something stupid when he felt I was about to say something stupid. And it was really interesting to watch. And when we got home, I brought it up with him, but I don't think he understood what I observed or experienced, because from his perspective, he was probably just acting on instinct. He was just doing what is socially, like he was executing social dynamics as he knew them intuitively, right?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with
Yeah.
Indian culture, so
Just to give you some examples, I guess, let me think. It was basically like I would call the my parents-in-law once removed by their first names, and my dad would say, "No, you should call them, G or sir, basically, respectfully, or ma'am." Right? You're probably familiar with that in your culture, right? Like, how do you
yeah.
address your parents or say your uncles or grandparents?
For parents, it's usually like dad, mom,
Mm-hmm.
sort of stuff. Generally for like uncles, aunts, you say uncle, their name,
Mm-hmm.
um, and then like same thing for aunt.
Mm-hmm.
Grandparents, some form of grandparent. I mean, there's a lot of different ones. So
Yeah, fair enough.
I mean,
So
and
yeah.
then when you just meet like other people, you pretty much just like call them by their first names.
Mm-hmm.
And that includes like my uh brother's
Mm-hmm.
wife's family. Like
Okay, makes sense. Yeah. So here, I think auntie and uncle would have been what he would have been okay with. It would have if I added some honorifics like G or ma'am or like things like that, then it would have been fine. I think the other thing was I just asked them a lot of questions, personal questions. I asked them like, "Oh, how did you grow up? Was there a war in your country when you grew up? Did you grow up in India? Okay, what was that like? What was independence like? Right? Because they've lived through a lot of things that I never lived through. So I was curious. And they seemed happy to answer it. They owned a farm. I asked them about what farming was like, especially in winter. And so this happened during winter, I think last year. That's why they were on break from the farm because you can't do much during winter in a
yeah,
farming business. So I learned about that. And I've noticed this. It's really interesting. My dad feels the cringe on my behalf, but my brother and his wife and even her parents, I didn't sense too much animosity or disdain or feeling disrespected or anything like that from them. And at the end, I explicitly asked them, "What do you think of me? What feedback do you have for how I was today? Do you like me as a person? Do you dislike me? Which things would you want me to change?" All of that, which is again a weird thing to do at a family gathering, but I did it. And then they just said, "No, we like you. We want you to come over again," and that's it. So I took them at their word. And my dad, I could sense that he believed they were just being polite. They were not telling me the truth. But I've
yeah,
noticed that when I lead with honesty, people tend to reciprocate with honesty. And I think that's a very human trait. We reciprocate. If I trust you, you trust me. If I'm vulnerable with you, you're vulnerable with me, and so on. You set the context by leading first, and by taking a risk in a way, because being honest is a risk. Asking a question is a risk. Acknowledging ignorance, stupidity, saying something stupid, these are all risks we take in human relationships. But I think the opportunity cost of not taking those risks is far higher than the sometimes the cost that we pay when we fall flat on our face.
yeah.
So, what's the most recent family gathering you've had that you can remember?
Like actual family gathering or like
Even informal.
siblings.
Sure,
Like
let's say siblings and or
um
at the dinner table. How often do you eat dinner with the family? Kind of.
generally it's whenever it's gonna be a few times a week at least.
Mm-hmm.
And it really just depends on schedules because like
Mm-hmm.
Monday night I'm leaving before they have dinner, so I don't eat dinner with them at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then it also kind of depends on what we're having. Like sometimes they'll like order a pizza and then they will go eat on the couch.
Mm-hmm.
I prefer not to eat on the couch
Mm-hmm.
because I like to be able to set down my plate. It's just more convenient for me. So
Yeah.
I'll still sit at the table. I won't like take it to my room or anything.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, we're in the same kind of the same room, but not really eating together. If that makes sense, because the dining room and the living room do not have a wall separating them.
No, I visited a friend's house. They have a couch, they have a TV, and they have a dining room, all in the same room, right?
Yeah,
So I know what you mean. I understand that kind of layout. So there's still togetherness, even if you're not talking to each other. But I
yeah.
assume you do talk to each other a little bit, maybe.
Not usually when they're sitting on the couch.
Like,
Usually,
so they're watching TV or something,
yeah,
or okay, and then
some,
you're,
yeah,
if anyone else is at the table, you might talk with them.
yes,
Okay. But other than that, you're
Um,
kind of just. And is your mom like cooking at the time? Is she serving people or is she sitting down and eating? Like, how does it work?
she's sitting down and eating as well.
Okay. Because the food has been prepared, people serve themselves. It's very
Yes.
different from, I think, Indian culture where there's like a host or a hostess and they are continually like refilling people's plates and they sit down and eat too. But it's like if they notice, they're very conscious. I think this is true in many Asian cultures. They're conscious of someone's water going down, food going down. There's a hospitality element to it. And then they come and they refill everything and they make sure it's good, or they ask you, do you want more of this? Do you want more of that? It's not so much self serve.
See, for me, like
Hmm.
that more plays into when I don't know someone as well or they don't know me as well. That way, it's like the nice thing to do is like, oh, what do you want, like water or something?
Right,
Because maybe they don't know where that stuff is, but it
right.
also gives them the opportunity to ask where that is without having to just bring it up.
Right. And that's why I've also found when I proactively state my needs. For example, I asked my brother when I came here, like, or I'm at a friend's house, or I'm like, oh, where can I get a glass, to fill up water? And then I find people's first instinct is, oh, let me do that for you. And I'm like, no, I'd like to do it myself. I want to learn where things are. And then
Yeah.
they're like, oh, okay. And that sets the context because now, first of all, I know based on how they respond that I'm safe to state my needs. For example, hey, where can I find the washroom? Right?
Yeah.
Um, And I think it also sets the context that they know that they don't have to worry about my needs because I've stated them proactively once. So they can start worrying about me less and think about themselves more. And
Yeah.
that way, there's less mental burden and emotional labor from them done on my behalf. They don't have to empathize with me as much on a constant basis. And I think all
Yeah.
of that, a lot of that happens subconsciously, right? People don't choose to be concerned about others. It's just part of human nature. We try to pay attention. It's like, oh, it just strikes them like, oh, maybe you haven't had water. Do you want some kind of thing? Or do you want a drink? It's
Yeah.
actually funny how many times people have offered me drinks and they seem confused that I want water.
Really?
Yeah, they're like, can I get you tea, coffee, soda? And I'm like, how about water? And they're like, you sure? You sure you don't want tea, coffee, juice, soda, like anything? I'm like, no, no, water's good. I like water. That's my favorite drink. And then they're like, okay, okay. And then and then, I get water. It's just kind of funny.
See, I'm like that too, though.
Mhm.
Every once in a while I'll have like apple juice or like chocolate milk or something, but
Right.
pretty much 19 times out of 20, I'm gonna just say, "Can you get me some water?" Like
Yeah.
if they ask, like I don't drink anything. That's a big jug right there.
Yes, it is. I'll link this in the show notes. I had to get this because I realized I wasn't drinking enough water unless I made it convenient. I'm just like,
Yeah.
okay, because I would run out of water and not fill the bottle because it was inconvenient and I would just
Okay.
not drink. So
See,
now I just have to fill this up less. Yeah.
this is the one I have.
Nice.
I ran out of time to fill it, so it's
Mhm.
currently empty.
Why don't we
But
take a break and go fill it? I mean, I can ask Tony to cut this. I'll go fill
it's
mine as
fine.
well. It's almost empty.
Well, it's fine because I'd rather just do
Mhm.
this because I'll probably have to. Because I'll be able to drink at dinner.
I mean, you should be drinking like, what is it? 150 ml, 250 ml every like 30 minutes, hour, something like that. I forgot
I
how it
don't know.
is.
Mine's everything here is measured in ounces, so
Okay. What I mean is that you should be drinking, it's better to drink every 15, 30
yeah.
minutes or an hour than it is to
I
drink every like 3 hours.
Yeah, I did finish
Mhm.
this right before we started this. So,
Okay, that's fine then. Yeah. I'm still targeting about an hour and a half for the podcast. So at about
okay.
1 hour, 20 minutes, I will, gently remind you. Then you can check your time, see how much time we have and so on.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, I think we have plenty of time for now. Yeah, we are 40 minutes in. So we're about halfway
Okay.
through. Let me try to think if there's anything key that we wanted to cover. So you said, okay, now is the time in your life where you feel you're making the most extraordinary choices. So,
Yeah.
one, you are combating your perfectionism. You are starting to write and just letting your mind flow, letting the words spill out onto paper, letting your expression come out. And then you can always go back and edit. You're not worrying too
Yes.
much about getting it perfectly right the first time. Perfect.
Yeah.
So you're willing to do things that might not work. You're willing to try things. Now, are you willing to publish in any form? For example, write a public blog or
Um,
put your thoughts out there, because that's the next scary step that a lot of
yes.
people get stuck on, right?
I would see I obviously I'm not close to that yet with what I'm writing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I actually would.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I definitely would because for me, it's not just about me telling a story. I want people to find enjoyment out of reading that.
Yes.
So it's not just writing for me. I
Mm-hmm.
want to make people like feel the happiness from reading the book, if that
Mm-hmm.
makes sense.
It makes sense. So you want to be an objectively good writer, right? You want
Yes.
to get objectively better at writing to make people enjoy what they're reading.
Yeah.
But, however, the best way to get good at something is to suck first, right?
Yeah.
And then to get feedback and criticism and analyze it and understand what sucks about it and what does it take. What is it that good writing does that people like and that makes people happy?
But that's also why I'm not like scared to try and get it published, though, because I
Right,
do want it to be out there.
right. But you don't need to publish a whole novel. You can publish like Worm, right? Worm. Have you read Worm or heard of it? Am I
No.
naming the right one? It's like some kind of web novel, as I understand, but it's very long. It was written online. It's got a great fan base. A friend of mine who's into world building and writing his own stories and stuff showed me Worm. I haven't read through all of it. It's very long.
Is it worm with a Y or an O?
I don't know. Try O.
Okay.
Yeah. Some kind of web comic, just or web novel or web novella, web series, written series. But it's a literary work of art and it's shared
Okay.
publicly. Like you now live in the age where traditional publishing is kind of a hassle. You'll have a lot of publishers who will say no to books that the internet would have said yes to,
Yeah.
right? And that's the value of the internet. The internet is many, 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 many micro niches, micro communities for everything. If you love yarning, you can find a community for yarning, just yarning, darning, anything, sewing, stitching. You can find a community for literally, I don't know, I'm just gonna make something up that's ridiculous, but it probably exists. It's like teenage vampires who like chocolate pie, fan fiction, right? I bet there's a community that does that. So if you
Yeah.
want to write that, there's an audience, right? But the
Yeah.
point is, you need to choose something. It's worth niching down. It's worth figuring out what really fits your true values. So, tell me more
Yeah.
about what you like to write. Is it high fantasy, sci-fi, both?
Pretty much all fantasy, I'll be honest.
Okay. You said you like
Yeah,
reading sci-fi, right?
I do. It's not nearly as much. I mean, I can here, I'll pull out the book that's on. So this is one of the books that I really enjoy.
Yeah. So I know Brandon
Uh,
Sanderson. Yeah.
yeah, and he writes this one's complete fantasy. I
hmm
love it.
So what are the elements of fantasy? Help me, because I don't read fantasy. I want to understand.
Okay.
I've read, I guess, Game of Thrones. I've read Harry Potter when I was a kid. I
Yeah.
haven't read much fiction lately. I've mostly been reading nonfiction. But so tell me,
Okay.
what is fantasy?
I mean, even there's so many so a lot of stuff I end up reading is either a mirror of our own world
hmm
or it's like a completely different world. And I think it's good to distinguish between those two.
hmm
Um, because of a mirror in our own world would have you know, like magic or superpowers in the world we live in now.
hmm
And maybe it's like Harry Potter where it's completely secret,
hmm
or maybe it's not where it's well known.
hmm
But it's still very similar to the world that we know now. And then like you obviously have, the ones that take place back when like kings, knights, and all that,
hmm
and then dragons and stuff like Game of Thrones.
Okay.
So,
I'm
but
just
I do.
wondering, how would you niche down in a fantasy world? So mirrors of our own world with a few things changed, for example?
So I can give you an example
Okay. Have
based
you
on
read the
this
Artemis
book.
series of books, by the way? Or heard of them?
I actually started to when I
Okay.
was in seventh grade. I never
hmm
finished it because I
Okay.
was doing it through my school library and they didn't have all of them.
Yeah.
So I can give you an
hmm
example through Vicious.
Vicious. I
Yeah, by
haven't heard of
B.E.
that one.
Schwab. So this is a mirror of our own world.
Okay.
And how I would describe it is basically near-death experiences
hmm
generate superpowers for people.
Interesting. So people whose heart stops and then you restart it with, a defibrillator and
Yes.
then they come back to life and now they have superpowers.
And depending on how they died is depending on the superpower that they get and like their final
Okay.
thoughts.
Their
So
final thoughts, their experiences. Now, are there people who try to have near-death experiences on purpose to develop superpowers?
that's what the book is about.
It is?
Um,
Okay. You're
so
not going to
it's
spoil it
about
for
so
us?
I won't I
I,
won't I
I
won't
mean, I
I'll
want you to.
just
I want
in
you
the
to spoil it for
beginning.
us. Yeah, go
So
ahead.
basically what happens is that there's two people in college. They're extremely smart.
Yeah.
Um, and they have a it's either a final project or thesis statement to write.
Yeah.
And so the one just goes with extraordinaries, which is what their people with superpowers are called.
Wait, extraordinary, just like this podcast. Okay.
And it's EOs for short.
Uh-huh.
Basically, they say, you know, I want to research that phenomenon, and at that point, like, it's basically urban legend. Like, no one
hmm
really believes it. Like, but
Okay.
he phases that as, I want to see the possibility of them existing, and maybe he, so like he could research it. Then he starts
Hmm.
researching it and
Hmm.
finding common links, and then he kind of figures out
Yep.
how all of these people got their superpowers, and then they attempt to get superpowers. Um,
Awesome.
and
So how
they do
rare were they when
succeed.
he Oh, they succeed. Okay. How
Yes.
rare Sorry, go ahead.
And the reason I'm telling you that is because it's told in two different times.
Hmm.
Back when they were still in college, and like I think 10 years later.
Hmm.
And it's those stories kind of are told at the same time through different chapters.
Hmm.
So you do figure out that they succeeded really early on in the book.
Okay. And then it's the story of working backwards. It's kind of like that film technique of like starting in the middle of the action near the end and then freeze frame and it's like,
Well,
how did we get here?
it
And
doesn't
then
actually work backwards at all. So what
okay, it's not
happens
working
is it tells
backwards.
two stories in tangent that are interrelated, but at different times.
Concurrently.
Yes.
So two stories progressing concurrently but starting at different temporal points of time.
Yes.
So but are they progressing at the same rate of time or different?
I'm not 100% certain on that
Oh,
one.
we don't know. Okay.
I
Right.
think actually,
Or
now that I'm
because maybe
remembering,
they will
it
accelerate or
is
decelerate to
it
beat
is
each other.
different points. It is very different, the time frames
Like
for both of those.
rate of time? Or
Yes. So the present time is told at a much slower rate than the past time.
okay.
In the past, I mean,
That
it
means the
just,
past would eventually catch up with the present,
but it
correct?
doesn't.
It doesn't. It doesn't. But it
No,
would if
because
they kept going. Yeah.
yes.
Hmm. Okay.
Um, so that's kind of how this book is told, and I really enjoy that form of storytelling. I thought it was done well.
So do you want to
But
try writing something like that with temporal innovation in how you're telling a story?
I would like to. I'm not going to attempt that yet.
Maybe it's too
I
advanced, do you think?
Yeah. My thing
Mhm.
is, I've always struggled to tell a story from a single point of view, because I feel like telling a story from multiple point of views, but limiting it to one
Mhm.
person at a time,
Yeah.
makes it so you have a better understanding of the entire story. And that's, so I'm kind of taking that philosophy and writing it like that, to
I
where
think
it
Game of
is told.
Thrones is like that, right? You're switching between perspectives of people
Yeah.
or situations or like, okay, one's in Westeros, one's in this place, one's in this other place. Yeah. And you're
Yeah.
swapping between them and time continues to progress. What's
Yeah.
interesting about what you said reminds me of an Isaac Asimov book. I forgot what it was called. Like The Gods something. But it was like one story was taking place on the moon, one story was taking place on Earth, and one story was taking place on like an alien planet with another species and how they were interacting. And then he kind of starts to meld the three stories. I forgot how it went. I read this when I was a teenager, but it was a great book. I should look it up again. I think it was either a short story or it was like a full book, but it was good. How much Isaac Asimov have you read?
Um, Nothing that I can remember right now. If
Like
I
I,
have, it would have been
Robot.
if I had read it, it would have been a while ago.
Have you come across the four laws of robotics or three laws of
I have.
robotics? Okay,
Yeah.
so you've definitely read enough or had some exposure to them. I mean, they're kind
Yeah.
of now culturally prevalent even through the movies that were made from his books and things like that.
Hmm.
But yeah, he had an interesting habit. A lot of writers I found, Roald Dahl, Isaac Asimov, Stephen King, many of them, they would have day jobs or they worked on it full time, but they always woke up early and then either worked before their day job or they had a set routine. Like they would always have writing hours. And in
Yeah.
those hours, they didn't do anything but write. They just sat down at the typewriter or computer, whatever it is, and all they could do was write. They didn't allow themselves any distractions, anything else. So Roald Dahl, he set up a routine where he would go out into the shed, he'd have a comfy blanket and a couch and a table and his pencil and paper, and he'd have all his tools.
Yeah.
Isaac Asimov, I think, used the typewriter, I'm not sure. I forgot what his schedule was. It was something like 7 a.m. to 12 p.m. and he would write. And I think if you can write every day, you don't even have to write that much, realistically. You can do
Yeah.
it 3 hours a day, 5 hours a day, but that consistent habit really builds into it. But if you end up like wasting days or letting days go by, so I'm trying to figure this out. What is my daily podcasting routine? What is
Yeah.
something I can do every day to get better at this? And for example, doing an interview a day, right, during the New World MMO, that was one of my goals, and I was doing it actually pretty well. So I
Yeah.
think I can get there with this as well. But
You
Tony, my
definitely can.
editor,
Yeah.
yeah, he did point out that the YouTube algorithm does not like daily uploads unless you
Okay.
already have an audience. So that's why he said, let's start Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And I appreciate that. Like, it's really good to work with him because I'm struggling even to keep up with Monday, Wednesday, Friday, right?
Yeah.
Yesterday, we were late on yesterday's episode. That's why today I'm doing the interview on Tuesday. We'll have it out by Wednesday. And I will try to build a bank like that. I need to keep working on finding people, but it's going to snowball 100%, just like in New World.
Yeah.
So I guess my question for you about your book and your idea and this, I had a question about that book, V. Schwab. Um,
Okay.
what do you think was the incidence rate of these superpowers at the time that this researcher started his work? For example, was it 1 in a billion people had it, meaning 7 people in the world in a population of 7 billion, or was it 1 in a million? Should be like, 70,000, I think, or 7,000.
So I think the
Hmm.
the problem with that is a lot of these people
Hmm.
are they do try and stay hidden.
Okay, so they are like vampires. They're staying in the night, like so.
Yeah,
They're
but
they're
it's
not
not.
a represented
They
demographic.
look like
This
normal people, so unless you'd actually see them using any of their superpowers, and you know,
and
with
they
some of
didn't
them you
want to
weren't,
get, yeah.
some of them you wouldn't even be able to realize that they had superpowers,
So they
just
didn't even
because.
want to get hauled off to like a lab and get researched to become guinea pigs. That was their fear.
Yeah.
So they couldn't be culturally open about the existence of these superpowers because it would
Hmm.
threaten their very existence.
Yeah, but it was obviously prevalent enough to where you'd
Mhm.
hear stories about it.
Okay, so because maybe they would see someone in trouble, someone being mugged or something, and then they
Yes.
would go like, I can't put my own safety over this person's. I need to
Yeah.
take a risk. Yeah.
It doesn't go very deep into that. I will say that.
Okay.
But it in the second book, it does go a little bit more into how how they all operate, and usually they're just trying to live normal lives.
Right. But what is a normal life to you? Like, do you want to live a normal life?
I mean, I don't really know what a normal life
Is.
entails.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to imagine it too. And what is it that makes, because we've seen this story a lot in much media, right? It's like you have an exceptional gift or you're famous or something big happens, either bad or good, and then you want to live a normal life.
Yeah.
But the people who have normal lives take them for granted. Like, do we have normal lives today? I guess relatively normal, right? We're not famous, we're
I
not
mean,
rich, we're not.
comparative to the
Yeah,
generally what you're like the story trope that you're saying, yes, we would.
we would. Yeah.
Yes.
But what is it about? What do they want? Does that mean that they want to go to college, get an education, have a wife and kids, or a husband and kids, start a family, live on a farm? Like what? I guess each of them has their own definition of normal. But
Yes.
do you want an extraordinary life or a normal life? Or normal in most ways, extraordinary in some? How would you design your life here? Let's say we're at the blueprint table, we're drawing the blueprint for your next 20 years or 40 years, let's say.
Okay.
What do you want it to look like?
That's a hard one.
I mean, just start talking. The thoughts will come.
Yeah.
That's how
Um,
I do it, right? Once I start talking, the answers come.
yeah, I don't I want to be able to build a community that can come together over over a common thing, like, like
Like
writing
engineering
a book.
serendipity.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like writing a book, doing a
Okay.
YouTube channel, like
Hmm.
streaming, like something like that, to where
Yeah.
you can build a community that, are there for a common purpose. And
Hmm.
then from there you can, people's lives are benefited from that.
Yeah.
Um, and I guess that's not really normal to do that. Like
Hmm.
it's not like a 9 to 5 job, like,
Right.
um, like I don't need to be like, the best at anything. I don't, but whatever.
Hmm.
Um, but I
But you want to
don't
build.
want to I don't want to just be another person
Hmm.
that is just there.
You want to be impactful. You want to be creative. And
Yeah.
being creative means you're creating something and you want to build a community. Building is also a form of creation. So tell me more about this community you'd like to build. What is it like? I'm now in this community. You've been
Okay.
running it for 3 years. I'm writing a novel. I have my podcast, YouTube channel. What's the experience like? How are the community members to me? What does it feel like to me? Put yourself in my shoes. I'm now a character that you're writing a story about, and I've joined your
Okay.
community. What's my experience?
It would be a very open place to where, like,
Hmm.
if you happen to, join, like, let's say a Discord voice call, like everyone
Hmm.
would say hi to you and, like, be welcoming, know that,
Inclusive.
yes, inclusive. They
Proactively bringing people into the fold. Okay.
Yes. I mean, like, obviously they don't necessarily say, "Oh, you should come join here," but
Hmm.
when someone's there, they're very welcoming, and they make sure an effort to make sure that they feel like they're welcome and can be a part of the conversation easily.
Mm.
Because I feel like that happens with, like, a lot of different groups to where, like, they just get so caught up
Hmm.
with the people that are normally there that once someone new joins, it's not like, it's hard for them to necessarily join the conversation.
It becomes a clique with walls around it, and
Yeah.
they're not consciously built, but it
Now
starts
it's
to then. exclude people.
Yeah.
So when we were in the New World community, how much of this inspiration do you think you've drawn from the way that I did things in engineering serendipity and all of that? Because I noticed that when people joined the voice channels, I would make an effort to say hi. And the reason I did those interviews in the first place was to learn about them. Like there was one guy who was also learning about data science and programming, and so I wanted to connect him with you. Sorry, data analytics, right? And I wanted to connect
I
him with
think
you.
I think he
Yeah.
was in data science. I was in
He
data
was actually in
analytics.
data science, right? And
Yeah.
maybe I drew a connection, but he was shy to come into voice chat and join everyone. But I said, why don't I introduce you to just Carter, right?
Yeah.
And Carter does a similar thing, and maybe you can connect with him. And then hopefully the two of you can then come into the group and there's a pathway to include someone. But I found that I was just very interested in that problem and creative with wanting that. But I guess many people don't view that as a problem, right? The reason I wrote that second class citizen document and sent it to Sanctionite is because I could see that people were being excluded. They were
Yeah.
feeling out of the group, out of the tribe. And what's the point of a tribe if you can't have people in it rather than out of it, right?
Yeah.
Unless you're consciously ostracizing them for some reason, they don't fit the values, whatever it is, then it shouldn't be happening. It's a problem. So what other features would this community have?
Um,
Properties, let's say.
I'm thinking like I'm just trying to think a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Take your time. There's no rush.
I'm just sorry.
Do you want to fill your water?
No, I dropped something.
Oh, okay, okay. It's fine.
I'm just like I want there to be stuff that those people do together as well. Like it's not just
So like screen
talking.
sharing, working on something,
Yeah.
collaborating, Google
Yeah, like
Docs, Google Sheets.
yeah, like there's collaboration.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to just be okay, well, you're here and it's just about this one thing. No, you can talk about anything.
Mm-hmm. I
Um,
yeah.
because it's I mean,
Mm-hmm.
some people might have a mild interest in that one thing, but
Mm-hmm.
as soon as you open up to absolutely everything and like, okay, you can, you can, yeah, you're here and this one reason's the reason you're here, but you don't have to stay because of that reason. You can stay because of other stuff.
Right. So the thing that hooks you may not be the thing that sustains you in the
Yes.
community. And you can it can be a place where people find sparks of interest in, say, singing, music, video,
Yeah.
interactive media, game development, right? All creative forms, writing. So basically,
Mhm.
a place for creative collaboration and creation and inspiration together. Because together, what's that African proverb? If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together, right?
I'll be honest, I've never heard it.
Okay, but so if
Yeah.
you want to go alone, or sorry, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So do you want your community to go fast or to go far?
Yeah.
No, it's a question.
Oh. I
Which one
mean,
do you want?
not
Because both are
obviously not
viable.
fast.
Both are
Yeah,
viable.
not fast. I'd rather grow over time and be sustainable.
Right, but fast can be many things. For example, this whole explorer versus leader thing in my conflict in the esports org, I'm realizing I may be trying to force leadership when I'm actually more of an explorer, which means that maybe I
Yeah.
do need to go alone because I don't like asking for permission. I don't like being held back by other people's critical feedback because I found that a lot of criticisms people give me or feedback, right? It actually, if I just do the thing anyway, people like it and it works out, sometimes. And sometimes it doesn't work out, but I learn anyway. So there was
Yeah.
like no downside to just doing what they told me to be careful about. They're like, oh,
Yeah.
be careful, don't do that. Watch out for that and this. And I'm like, let me just do it. And I do it. And I'm like, that wasn't nearly as bad as you said it would be, or it was way better than you said it would be. So your fears don't need to become my fears.
Yeah.
Right? I can have my own fears. I have enough of my own. I'll deal with those. You keep your fears to yourself. I'll go work on the other stuff. So, but what you're describing, maybe a place, maybe you can get both, right? Because I'm always one to think we don't need one or two. We can get one and two
Yes.
if we figure out a number three that does both. So you wanted to go far. You wanted to go
Yeah.
together. Collaboration, inclusivity. I mean, do you want to help me build this place to be like that? What do you think?
I mean, I don't know how you envision this place to be, and because I
Okay,
don't
I
want
can
to.
tell you that. Yeah,
Yeah.
we can try it together. And obviously, we can part ways if it doesn't work out, right? No big
Yeah.
deal. But what I envision this place, for example, It's funny, I have so many ideas when I'm trying to go to bed and I'm implementing them in the morning. Sometimes I
Mhm.
forget and I implement them days later or never. So that's why I've been trying to write them down whenever I have an idea. Roald Dahl used to do that. He told this story of writing with lipstick on the car window when he had an idea because that's all he had to write with. And then he drove home and then wrote down the idea for real, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
I mean,
but
nowadays we have phones everywhere. We could just
yeah,
type it.
exactly. We have phones everywhere. Although David Goggins talks about like he doesn't take his phone with him when he goes out. I'm interested in trying something like that, you know?
See, the only problem I have with that is I need GPS to get anywhere. So
Yeah, I'm the same. I need Google Maps. I mean, this is the problem with maybe our generation is we just need Google Maps, right? Like I'm so bad at navigation, spatial navigation without it.
I mean, I'm not going anywhere that's probably closer than 20 minutes. So like, I need something. Like, I don't know how to get anywhere.
Yeah. And then you look at London cab drivers and literal like apparently brain scans show that their
That's
brains have developed.
insane.
Yeah.
Like I like the stuff they have to memorize is
Yeah.
insane.
And
I
their
can I
brains
don't
literally physically adapt neuroplastically, you
yeah.
know, to fit that. It's crazy. But anyway, so my community, I created a channel called Collaborator Self Promotion or something, or Content Collaboration Self Promotion. And I connected two people, Justin plus my colleague Chris, because both of them are starting brand new YouTube channels.
Yeah.
And Justin, Shiva Fang, he actually had a MTG YouTube channel before. And he was using AI art and generation to help his YouTube thumbnails and things like that. And I need to get help from him because I'm struggling with my YouTube thumbnails, right? I've been procrastinating and not getting good thumbnails.
Yeah.
And I keep saying, oh, I'll go back and add thumbnails to all my videos. But every new video I put out and don't have a thumbnail on, I'm stacking up my work, right?
Yeah.
This is the problem with
It's
procrastination.
is it better to start it's better to start now than later because you're
Exactly.
gonna have yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
how about for this video you actually get a thumbnail for it?
yeah, I can make that a priority. I'll ask
Yeah.
Shiva to help me or Justin. I keep swapping between his in-game name and his real name. I just need to pick one. I'll just pick Justin and get used to it. So I wanted to connect him with Chris because Chris has also been procrastinating, but he's decided, okay, on Wednesdays when I would usually go to meet a friend, I will now record a video, you know, and I'll record
Okay.
multiple videos. And then the editing is a problem, but he's going to sit down and try to work on it. I feel really
Yeah.
lucky that I found Tony, my editor, because yeah, editing was why I was procrastinating. I had like 5 episodes recorded,
Yeah, that's my problem
none
right now is
released.
I'm procrastinating the editing because for me it's gonna be a lot of learning.
Right. So, I mean, one day we can just sit in a screen share call. I can open up DaVinci. I can show you what I know,
Okay.
which is very basic. I can even ask Tony to come in and just teach you some stuff, right? Why not? He might say yes. I think he'd enjoy explaining it. I've noticed a lot of people who like what they do, they like to explain it and teach others because it helps them. There was a guy,
Yeah.
Schmitty, actually, in New World. He was part of the Chads, that guild, remember? No. Yep.
I don't think
He
I've ever met him, but I know the
yeah,
guild.
he moved on. I think he's a streamer. He moved on from the guild, but he actually messaged me when he saw me writing, and this is why I do everything so transparently in all the discords I'm in, right? He saw me writing about learning DaVinci and things like that because Elric, one of our guild members, had also told me to work with. He's in this Discord as well. He can help you with video editing.
Okay.
He's starting a YouTube channel. He's very good at editing. He does things with machine learning and neural networks to AI generate. Like he's interested in deep fakes basically, right? So
Okay.
that's a whole other field of complexity.
Yeah.
But he also knows editing. So you can ask him to help you edit your videos. He might say yes. So this is my point though. Like you can see how the way I was in New World, interviewing people, remembering details, connections. So Schmitty pulled me into a voice channel one day and he just told me, hey, let me show you some stuff, some good videos about DaVinci and how to learn it and all that. And I was like, I didn't ask for this, but this is amazing. Like how
Yeah.
many people will proactively go out of their way to help you with a problem or help you learn a field? And he said, hey, I know you're super intellectual, you love learning things, you're big brain. That's why I wanted. So what he saw was potential in me and he wanted to spark it and grow it.
Yeah.
And I think you can show that potential at any age just by being curious, by being open to, to admitting your mistakes, open to learning, open to knowledge, just like we were playing Sons of the Forest last night and you explained so much to me.
Yeah.
Because you know I'm open to learning. I love listening. I love hearing how to chop these trees and, oh, I can chop off 3/4 of a log to then form a proper ramp
Yeah.
to build.
The only problem I have with like doing stuff like that is like at
Yeah.
what point like what information do I share? Because like
Yeah.
all the building stuff, like that's just helpful, you know. But like,
Yeah.
do I tell you like, oh, this item is here,
Right.
or do we just, or do I let you naturally discover that
Right. But since
and
I'm the
just
kind of
be
person who's
there?
Googling stuff anyway, you
Yeah.
might as well just tell me everything you know and then we'll
I mean,
build from
because
there.
well, here's the thing with Sons of the
Yeah.
Forest, all the caves are marked on the map
Hmm.
too, so you don't really have to Google anything. Eventually, you'll come across it.
Yeah, but stuff I was Googling was like, what's a good early weapon? What can I craft for this? Oh,
Yeah.
how do I make medicine? And things like that, right? Because whenever I have a question, I look for an answer. And some people prefer exploration and self discovery.
That's how
I
I am, and that's why
that's
it's like that's why I'm like hesitant to share everything with other people. It's because like part
Mhm.
of the process of is discovering that for
Mhm.
yourself.
But for
And
me, discovery is global. Like googling something is self-discovery,
yeah,
right? Like that's how I am. I viewed all acquisition of information and conversion into knowledge in my mind as discovery, right? Like that's the
yeah,
process of learning. That's what I love about games or anything really in life, right? I'm doing editing and I'm googling stuff. I'm learning. As long as I'm learning, I'm having fun. If I stop learning, I get stuck. That's when it becomes emotionally difficult for me.
okay.
And that's where the thumbnails and the editing and things like that can block me. But I just have to spend the time. Like if I can dedicate the first 10 minutes to something, I can go for hours. And I think that's the
Mhm.
ADHD hyperfocus thing. I'm not sure that I have ADHD, but it's an interesting model to look through to
See, for
understand how it
me,
is.
I
Yeah.
either focus on something or I get completely distracted, and there's no in between. And
There's
it's
no in between. I mean, I'm often multitasking between things. I love these podcasts because they force me to pay full attention to the
Mhm.
conversation. And yeah, sometimes I have thoughts and I want to write down things, but as long as I refocus, it's almost like meditation. I refocus on the thing that I want to focus on, and my focus improves.
Mhm.
And yeah, I noticed that, because I can see your face, I'm way more engaged. If I couldn't see your face, it would be I would be multitasking. I'd be alt tabbing. I'd have a harder time
Mhm.
focusing. But it's good to be able to notice those things and then work on them.
Yeah.
I just
See,
need to remember. Sorry, go ahead.
I've been focusing this entire time, but I've been like playing with these things in my hands, and
Oh
just
yeah,
like
I fidget. I fidget a lot, right? Like I have these grippers, and then I'm
and
like
like I'm
fidgeting.
trying like to make a conscious effort not to like look over to my second monitor because you're trying to
I
look
mean,
straight on, or like every time my
you can
phone
just
comes
turn it
up.
off. Like turn it off. That's what I don't have a second monitor right now, but when I set it up,
Okay,
that's what I'll do.
I'll
Yeah.
just I'll put the thing to sleep. There we go.
There you go. Yeah. That's what I do when I realize that I'm looking too much at my second monitor. I just turn it off.
But I mean, it's kind of helpful because like whenever like you when you mentioned something like in the
You
Discord,
want to look it up.
I was able to go click on the disc in that voice channel, see what you said while you were talking about it. I was like,
It
okay,
makes sense, yeah. And that's why I like the format where I was screen sharing, looking up things with the person. That also keeps me focused because I'm engaged. If I have a
yeah,
thought, I can Google it while I'm listening to them and then continue listening to them. I don't feel that kind of I don't know how to put it. I don't feel that it's being bottled up inside me and I'm stacking up three, four, five, six, seven things I want to say and I'm just waiting to say them. Because the
yeah,
more that happens, the less I'm listening. But if those things are being expressed in some way, meaning I'm Googling them, they're now on a page, the information is stored on a tab, and I have peace of mind, then my mind is free and I'm listening, right?
mhm,
So there's that interesting relationship between how much do you want to express yourself, how much are you waiting to say something, and how much do you feel free to just experience the moment with the other person because
yeah,
you know that everything that you are thinking about is handled. It'll be fine. You'll either remember it when you need to, you've written it down, or it's pulled up on a Google Chrome tab and you can look at it whenever you want, or
yeah.
discuss it with them and use it to
Definitely,
reference. Yeah.
that's definitely a really good thing to do because you need to
Mhm.
be able to have good conversations with with the other person as well
Yes.
as be able to have something else to bring up
Yes.
whenever that part of the conversation ends.
Yeah. And I'm realizing I'll have to put a lot of effort into my podcast, and that's a good thing. Like, I actually like putting in effort for things that I value, right? And that's what everybody is. Like, they found that ADHD kids, funnily enough, were very distractible, except when they were doing things they liked. Then they could pay a lot of attention. And I'm like,
Yeah,
well, okay, that's an easy solution. Just do things you like, find things you like. But
yeah,
instead, we put kids in classrooms and we medicate them with Ritalin or Adderall or whatever, and we try to get them to conform and comply and be in situations that they simply dislike, they hate. And sure, in life, you have to do plenty of things you hate, but you have autonomy in how you approach them, and you can find ways to solve problems and situations you dislike that work for you, that you like. You can find creative ways. But school is not about creativity or alternate problem solving. It's something
see,
else
for
entirely.
me, I actually
Yeah.
did enjoy school a lot,
Okay.
but that's
Tell
because
me more.
I enjoyed the learning aspect of it.
Okay. So what was school
Um,
like for you? Let's say elementary school.
which I'll be honest, I don't really remember elementary school.
Okay, let's say middle school, high
I
school.
remember like one thing from elementary school, and it was me
Mhm.
cheating on a spelling test in first grade.
Oof. I'm sure I can't remember if I've cheated. Dude, okay, I had the opposite story, and this will probably give
Okay.
you an idea of. I mean, a lot of people are going to hate me for this, but that's okay. Um, basically, we had some kind of physics test, grade 10, grade 11, something like that, high school.
Mhm.
I would have been, what, 15 or 16, roughly? Because grade 8 is 13, yeah, I would have been 15 or 16. So it was a group test, I think, and
How
the
does a
test
group
came back
test
from the.
work?
Oh, so it's kind of like we have four people at a table, we get the test, and then we collaborate and we try to answer it together.
Okay.
Okay, so like four-person teams.
Yeah.
Now the test, we sent it, gave it back to the teacher. He marked it. He gave it back to us. I looked over it and I realized there was an answer that we got wrong, but he marked us correct. So I discussed
Mhm.
it with my team and I said, we should get this corrected because we don't deserve this mark. We didn't earn it. We got the question wrong. So I had this strong streak of fairness. I guess I'm realizing now I've had this my whole life, basically. This strong streak of fairness that I don't want to be treated unfairly. To many people, that means being treated worse than they deserve. To me, that also includes being treated better than I deserve, right? Because that's
Okay.
also unfair. It's just in the other direction.
Yeah.
Uh, so I went back to the teacher anyway, and I said, "Look, we got a mark wrong. We got this question wrong. I need you to correct it. Please take the grade away." And my team was mad at me, but I was okay because to me, this was, yes, I'm hurting them and it sucks, but it's the truth, right? We
Yeah.
didn't
So
deserve that grade.
for
Yeah.
me, a lot of my teachers would
Hmm.
often say, like, if you got one right and I marked it wrong, let me know. If you got one wrong and I marked it right, you got a freebie. So
Right.
for me, it was like never really a thing because
Hmm.
I mean, I don't know why it necessarily did that,
Hmm.
but that was most of their philosophies. So
Well, maybe this teacher had a similar thing because he ended up laughing a little bit, like chuckling, and then
mhm.
saying, "No, don't worry about it." And I said, "No, I insist. You need to correct this. This is important. We did not deserve this mark. Our grade is changing for reasons that are untrue, right? Like we did not earn this." And he
Yeah,
said, he actually doubled down. And he said, "No, I'm not going to do it." And I just got mad at him. And then I went back and I sat down and I was fuming, right? But I realized there's not much I can do. But
yeah,
that story does make me realize that, yeah, and this is why I never bought into the grade system because I realized teachers kept telling me things like you're not living up to your potential. Like, okay, you're doing great on tests, but you're not doing your homework. So you're just getting a B or an A, but it's not enough. You could be getting 98%. Why aren't you trying? And I was
yeah,
just like, I don't need the grades. I don't like homework. It's not enjoyable to me. I like paying attention in class. I like learning. I like discussing with you, asking questions. I like learning in person. I'm not going to do my homework. It's not fun. There's no
yeah.
point. It's boring. Okay. And then, by the way, my grades did get worse by 12th grade. I almost failed math class and other things.
Okay.
So it's not like I was performing great throughout all of it. Up
For
to
me,
10th or 11th grade, I was doing better. Yeah.
I was kind of like you actually, but instead
Mhm.
of just not doing the homework, I kind of cheated on it.
Okay.
Like I was copying other people, looking up all
Right.
the answers, that sort of thing. Because like I don't care
You
about my homework.
bypassed it. Exactly. You
Yes.
bypassed, however. And wasn't there a country like Finland, Denmark, one of them that it just eliminated homework and they found better results? Students were doing better by
Yeah.
however they could measure. So, like, I'm not convinced that homework is needed. Now, I do agree that a work ethic and being willing to do work at home or whatever is good, but you should choose that work. It should not be hoisted upon you,
Yeah.
right? Like, you should love the work that you do because you're doing it for you. You're not doing it for anyone else. You're doing it for the people you care about, for the world that you are in, the career you're building, for the things that you love. I think it was Elliot Temple. There was a quote, something like, "The purpose of life is to do productive things that you like."
Okay.
That's it. Very simple. And I like that a lot because that's like, you don't need to overcomplicate life, right? Just find productive things to do that you like. And by productive, I imagine it means adding value to the lives of other people, right? Making the world
Yeah.
a better place, making their lives better by their own judgment, and thus they will pay you for it because they value it. So you'll
Yeah.
make money. But you're not doing it for the money. The money is a byproduct. You're doing it because you like doing it. And
Yeah.
thus, when you like something, you will put in effort. Like, I don't put in much effort to doing laundry. I don't like laundry, but I put in a lot of effort on the podcast. I'm going to
I'll be
scrub through.
honest. Last time I
Yeah.
did laundry, it took me a while to fold it because I was like, I hate this.
I don't even fold my clothes. I just hang them on hangers. Find an easier way.
I d- I
Yeah.
don't. So I'm not going to show you right now, but I
Oh,
actually can't hang them up in my closet.
okay. I mean,
So
I
that's
used
not.
to just put them in a pile and then wear them, but I
Yeah,
get it.
it
Like,
gets all wrinkly like that.
it gets wrinkly. Okay, yeah. If you value
Yeah.
the unwrinkledness, then you got to iron them and then put them on a hanger. So get
Yeah.
some hangers, I guess, or figure out a way. There's going to be a creative way. I mean, I see you have a curtain rod by the window kind of thing. Maybe you can put hangers there. I don't know.
You can't even. I don't. There's no window that you can see.
Well, what is that curtain rod behind you, like in the
Oh,
metal on
that
the
you can
left?
see that.
Yeah, I can't see that. It's in the
That's
frame.
not actually a curtain rod. That's the top of the blinds. You just can't see the rest of the blinds for whatever
Oh,
reason.
because the sunlight is too
Yeah.
bright. Yeah, okay, got it.
No, nothing can hang from there.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, got
My
it.
my
Well,
door's on this side.
we'll figure
So
something out. I mean, you know how people have pull-up bars on their
yeah.
doorway. So I mean, you can figure something out. It's fine.
Yeah.
But let's go back. I'm just trying to think. Let me just check on the time real quick. Okay, we're 1 hour 16 minutes in, so we have about 14 minutes more. So let's just focus on wrapping up and try to conclude some of the key topics. So this community, you asked about what kind of community I'm building, and then we spoke about your fantasy novels, what you're looking to build, the characters you want. Okay,
Yeah.
the style that you're trying for. Did you ever tell me how you get into character?
No. I mean, I kind of briefly touched on it, like just sort of starting to write, and then as I
And
continue to write, just get more of a feel for the character, and that's
so it's
kind of how I do
intuitive.
it.
Okay, it's intuitive, yeah. And
Yes,
apparently that can be common with
I
INTPs.
don't,
Mhm.
yeah, I don't just like decide, oh, I'm gonna get into this character.
Right.
Um, it's more like, okay, like it's like I'm feeling the character. This is how they would react.
Mm.
And then from there, it actually influences me in my actions of like how like
Mhm.
for a little bit afterwards because like I'm still in the mind of that character when I'm doing stuff.
Exactly. So this is how you can change your life. You
Yeah.
roleplay a character who would have a positive impact on your life, and then you get to then live that character's values for a short period after you've roleplayed them, right?
Yes.
So this is something interesting I can try to do for the podcast. Like someone told me, hey, imagine if you go to the gym right before the podcast, you'll sound different. Your episode will have a different quality to it. You will get a
Yeah.
different number of views. You'll attract a different kind of audience. So I was like, huh, that's interesting. Intangibles. So what you described is like that. So
Yeah.
okay, next time I want to go more into maybe one or two specific characters, and I want to see
Okay.
how you describe them and get into that because that would be interesting to me.
See,
Because
it also the getting into characters isn't just for characters I write. It's actually for characters I read. I see like TV
ex-
movies too.
and that's what empathy is.
Yeah, and like so I will react. Like for me, it's like
Mhm.
I will. It's very similar to me being those characters. So like like I hate it when like anything like ends
Mhm.
due to that because I do get into the minds of these characters and like it ending is like that part of me ending sort of.
Mhm. Interesting. I do feel that. Like, I guess people have always, I've always been looked at weirdly when I point out like how it feels really bad when I'm playing a character in a game and someone that my character in the game loves dies.
Oh
And
yeah,
now I have to experience that death because I am experiencing my character, right? But to other
yeah.
people, they're just like, it's just a game, dude. It's just a character.
It does depend on the character for me. Like it's not
Sure.
every character.
Okay, so you're not able to empathize with every character. What
Yes,
is it?
I most pretty much every character I can, but it's
Mhm.
not who the character is. It's how they're portrayed
Okay.
and like how well their thoughts and feelings are put there.
And
Like,
so
'cause
do
if you
you
have
want to become the kind of writer who portrays your characters very well?
yes,
Object. Okay.
because
Mhm.
like if I'm playing like a Call of Duty game where I'm not gonna empathize with the character that's just shooting the entire time because they don't have barely any voice lines. They're just
I see what you're saying. It's very dehumanized, depersonalized, and sometimes they do that by design on purpose
yeah.
because Call of Duty had that controversial scene where you're killing everyone in an airport, you're shooting a bunch of people. They
Yeah.
obviously don't want you to empathize with that person who's
But
doing that
well, here's the
necessarily.
thing with that. It's like
Mhm.
after because at the end of the mission he gets shot.
Right,
And he was just following orders because
right.
he had
Those
to
are
in
his
order
orders.
to
Yeah,
like what in his mind he was doing the best thing for his country
right. And that
because
is an
he was
important thing to be able to empathize
infiltrating
with.
a terrorist group that was after
Right,
America.
exactly. So he went deep undercover. What happened? Did he get brainwashed by the terrorist group,
No,
or?
so what happened is at the end of that mission,
Mhm.
Makarov kind of lets you know that he knew the entire time that they were American, and then
Mm.
shoots them as they get on the escape vehicle, leave the body there.
So Makarov was part of the terrorist group. Was it a
Yes, he was
Russian
the leader of
terrorist
it. Yeah,
cell?
Russian
Okay,
terrorist
Russian
group.
terrorist cell. Got it.
So what happened is Makarov figured
Mhm.
out that I forget whatever his name was part of the Americans,
Okay.
and I think it's kind of implied that he set up the entire mission not for the benefit of the terrorist group, but to start a war between Russia and America by leaving
Right.
the American body there to take the blame.
Right. That's so interesting. See, now that makes me think that the writers were really thinking through this because that's fascinating to me. Because what it means is that Makarov identified the undercover agent, and then he also figured out a multi layered strategy to utilize him as a guinea pig. One is that he gets him to do the dirty work of killing a bunch of people because
Yeah.
one of Makarov's terrorists might have been willing to do that, but it
Well, there was multiple terrorists there doing it.
okay, there were multiple people. Okay, so it was a team of
Yes.
terrorists doing it. And then but really the clincher was leaving the American body behind to be the scapegoat, to take the blame
Yes.
because suddenly that starts a whole media scandal, a whole breach of trust, right? Because if you want to, for example, if you're playing game theory or war games and you're thinking, how do we take two people who trust each other deeply and then make them work against each other? And the answer is to make one of them think that the other did something that breaches trust, such as killing innocent people or whatever it is. And something so bad that it'll be hard for them to discuss or collaboratively problem solve or get the truth out. Or even if one person tells the truth, the other person won't want to believe them because there's too much evidence,
Yeah.
doubt, or their character comes into question. And I think
Hmm.
this is why trust is so important. I was discussing this with Chris the other day because we were discussing what would it take for a husband and wife couple. What are the key factors, shared values and other things, for a husband and wife couple to run a business together? And it kind of got into the discussion of like, should you trust your life partner with your finances from the beginning, right? Before you get married. And it made sense to me. His view was yes, you should. Because what's the point of marrying someone, long term life partner, if you can't trust them with your finances?
Yeah.
And then if something bad happens, like the example he brought up was, let's say a mental illness strikes one of you and you just go on a spending spree or something, um, or some impulse or whatever it is. But then you probably have bigger problems to deal with than the money issue, right?
Yeah.
And you can always figure out systems, we can get into this next time. I remember one guy talking about Bitcoin and having multi-authentication keys. You'd probably be interested in all of that.
Okay.
Or who was it? Someone Breedlove, Robert Breedlove. He was talking about Austrian
Okay.
economics and stuff. So we'll get into that next time. But for now, yeah, I think everything you described was already what I was doing with engineering serendipity. So it's clearly what I'm. You can already see me doing it with this Discord community,
Hmm.
where I am trying to include people, invite people. I created that channel for collaboration before you even told me about your idea of having people collaborate, right?
Yeah.
And I asked another coach who's creating content whether he allowed self promotion, and his answer was because he didn't have it in the rules. He's new to Discord. He's making his Discord,
Yeah.
um, but he's already grown to like 250 people in Discord, and he's had like lots of positive testimonials of coaching sessions. So he's doing quite well since December, late December. In about 2 months, he's done quite well. I think he's growing very well because the community members he has, they don't abuse the fact that you can type in his announcements channel, you can type in the channels that you're not supposed to be able to type in, and not a single person has typed in any of them. Not a single person
Oh,
has trolled him.
really?
Yeah. Out of
See,
250 people joining, and they all discuss actively, or not all, but many of them discuss actively. So they have good values. And I told him, if you have 250 people with good values, you can grow it into 5,000 with good values
yeah.
relatively easily.
Well,
But if you have 1,000 people with like mixed and bad values, it's very hard to pare that down and kick the right people and moderate it. And
yeah.
so you need to build the right values into your culture and community so that it self-polices. In that
Yes.
Discord, in another one called the School of Support, when someone comes in blaming their teammates in League of Legends or blaming externals, things outside of their control, people are actually call them out. They say, let's go over the review together. Let's look at the game. And there are people who will actually pull up the game proactively and they'll point out, hey, the story you told yesterday was not true. Here's what actually happened. Here's a clip, right?
Yeah.
You actually could have done this, this, this. You said they did this, but actually they didn't, and so on. So people hold each other accountable to reality and the truth. And that's so
Yeah.
important for
I
learning.
think that's
Mhm.
especially important in like a team setting
Yes.
because you have to be able to not like be able to call people out when they're, saying something that's not true. Maybe they, think it is true at the time,
Yep.
but you have to make because maybe that person didn't realize, oh, I did, I should have done that at that time, and that also enables them to be better in the future as
Yeah.
well.
So I've actually been working on writing the rules for this Discord. I think I have like a 2 sentence unfinished message. Like I have so
Uh,
many unfinished messages everywhere. But basically, I was writing, I value honesty, right?
okay.
I value honesty and curiosity primarily because I think with honesty and curiosity, you can build every other value from there. Um, I value innovation a lot, but I think curiosity plus honesty gets you to innovation because with curiosity and honesty, you're not so much pulled in by the meta. You're not so worried about what other people are doing or what is normal or what pleases other people. And I would say self assuredness to some degree, which again builds from curiosity and honesty. But that is the whole thing of
Okay.
not negotiating who you are, right?
Yeah.
So if you think a community built on those values is something you want to help build, then I want you as my partner building it with me.
Okay.
Yeah. So think about it. Let me know.
I will.
Yeah.
Or
And
we can discuss it later if we end up
sure.
doing stuff.
Yeah. And you
Um,
can take a look at that collaborator channel. You can join Shiva
yeah,
and Chris or Justin and Chris and say, hey, I'm starting my YouTube channel. Can you help me? Or you can
yeah.
ask Elric, right? Ask Elric, hey, help me learn DaVinci. Elric will probably say yes.
I
You
do
know?
actually have a couple other friends who are like pretty
Yeah.
much starting out YouTube as well.
You can invite them to the Discord. Tell them, hey, use this
Uh,
channel and start
I
collaborating.
I may invite the one,
Sure.
however, um, sorry, just trying to
No
get
worries.
this
No
done.
worries.
Um, because
We have
he
about
does
3 more
play on PC,
minutes.
but the rest
Mhm.
of them are pretty much only on PlayStation. And they
Ah,
don't use Discord very often.
yeah, it's interesting because I'm running my interviews through Discord. So some people, like my dad, came and watched the interview yesterday live from his phone or laptop or something. Like I
Yeah.
got him on Discord. So I'm actually spreading Discord to people because I'm doing everything here. People who
Yeah.
don't usually use it. Yeah.
I think the only difficult part with using like PlayStation is because while they're playing games, they can't be actively involved in Discord because they'll be using the party chat. Because if you have headphones on, I mean, you
Mhm.
can only have one pair of headphones on at a time, which
Right.
means you have to choose between like being in a voice chat in Discord or being able to actually hear the game you're
Or
playing.
what people have done, which is having like sort of earbuds, right? Wired
Yeah,
earbuds underneath
I've actually
headphones.
I've
Yeah.
done that quite a few times.
Yeah,
Because
exactly. There
like
are solutions.
I would been like, oh, I want to play a game on my computer right now.
Hmm.
But they're all in
I want to talk to
VC
them
on.
on PlayStation
Yeah.
voice chat. Yeah,
So I
you
put
can do
I
both.
put these headphones on
Yep.
because the pair I'm wearing right now is only for PC and
It's
Xbox.
Bluetooth. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then I have like a pair of earbuds I just put into my computer and then I'm
Hmm.
able to do both.
Yeah.
However, it doesn't work the other way around. So
Hmm.
I can't talk to people on Discord while being able to listen and play on PlayStation.
Yeah. It makes sense. Yeah. So all problems are solvable, right? With creativity, we can find a solution
Yes.
to anything. As long as the laws of physics don't prohibit it, we can find a solution.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's just wrap up here. So, is there anything
Okay.
you'd like to share with the world, share with people? Do you want me to put your YouTube link in the description, anything like that?
Not yet.
Not yet. Tell
Let
us
me get a few
about
videos
the
up
channel
first.
you're working on, because you told me you have about 15
It
hours of Hogwarts Legacy footage.
Yeah, I can actually give you an exact time frame for that if
You don't need to, just approximate, because we have 2 more minutes,
yeah,
right? That's why.
it's just I mean I've been playing Hogwarts Legacy. I have
Hmm.
yeah, it's roughly 15 hours of that.
Hmm.
Um I think I have a few hours of Sons of the Forest. I don't have that currently saved on my computer, but
Hmm.
I because I was streaming that, so I should be able to just grab that.
Yeah. I recommend
Um
streaming and recording at the same time if your computer can handle it, because you want the high quality VOD, because Twitch will compress it and
yeah,
there's
I
problems.
I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure it can. I wasn't 100% certain. I also wasn't certain at the time like should
Hmm.
I use this for a video or should I start a different playthrough for a video and do it like
Hmm.
that?
Yeah.
Because it is kind of annoying depending on the what you're watching for, especially like a horror game but like when a notification pops up on screen
Mm,
and then you have to see that notification.
right.
Um, and it kind of just ruins that part of like the immersion for you, the
I
viewer.
understand. So you can turn off Steam notifications. There are options and things you can
Yeah,
do.
I don't. I'm talking about like Twitch, like stream notifications and that thing, because they want to be
Okay,
able to see it on stream, but you don't want them to be able to see it in the YouTube video. So I have to figure out how to do that. And I was like,
interesting.
it's better
Yeah.
for me to just start doing the stream now and figure that out at some other point.
Yeah, so just keep
That
streaming. Do you want me to link your
yeah,
stream in the description?
you can. I have to grab a link for it real quick though, and
Sure.
um, this is a bit difficult for me because I have to use a keyboard that's behind the laptop that I'm using to talk to you. So
So
I should
you,
probably
yeah.
figure out how to like get a webcam or something.
No, this webcam is good. It's better quality
Oh,
than mine. Yeah.
well, so it's because it's my father's laptop.
Okay,
Um,
that's why. So you don't have access to it all the time.
yes, and that
Mhm.
way, like if you ever do want to like talk, I can do that.
Right, I understand.
But like on my YouTube, I'm never gonna do face cam or anything.
Hmm.
Um,
Why do you think that is?
it's I don't generally do that at all. I don't. It's just I don't know. It's weird for me.
Because I never did
It
this until like a week ago, and then I
it's
started doing it. So.
it's not like I'm there. It is. It's not like I'm against it. It's just I don't like I don't want to just be. I'd rather just have the game there for people to
Hmm.
see it. Okay, I'm sending you a link right now for that. That way I don't forget.
Hmm. I'm guessing what you could do is use Streamlabs and OBS and use one of them to stream with a certain setup with a webcam and with
Yeah.
notifications and things like that, and use Streamlabs or the other one
See,
to
I'm not sure how
record for
GPU or
YouTube.
CPU heavy the recording and streaming are.
Yeah, it depends on your computer setup. For me, I can record and
Yeah.
stream just fine, so I have no
I,
issues.
I think I should be fine then.
But not necessarily in the forest, right? Or Sons of the Forest.
Yeah,
I'm doing it with
yeah.
this. If I did it with Dying Light 2 or Modern Warfare, DMZ or whatever, then yeah, it might be strained because it's already hitting like 95% without streaming
I
or
mean,
recording. Yeah.
if you ever go look at my channel, be able to see the streams. You could see. I mean, it's pretty smooth for the most part.
hmm
Um,
So the things you're creating are video content through YouTube
yes,
and Twitch, as well as written content through your fantasy work,
yeah.
novel, short story, whatever you might write. You hate short stories, you found. I told you about
It's
the
not that
writing
I hate.
prompts, right?
I like
Yeah.
short stories. I just suck at writing them because I like
Me
to
too.
go into nitty gritty details.
Right, but you can start every short story and then keep going when you like the prompt or whatever it is. Okay, so those three things. So I'll figure out a way to organize the Discord. Just send me some ideas of like, do we organize it by content type or do we just do all collaboration in one channel
I
for
think all
all the time?
collaboration one channel would work for now.
For now, yeah, until it grows.
Because
Yeah.
yeah, if it does grow and you get, let's say there's like 20 people all interested in this certain type of
hmm
content creation, then that is at that point there's enough of an audience to it where the channel's not just going to be dead.
Yeah, I think we already have 2, 3 people. So yeah, we'll get there. So
Yeah.
okay, one final question for you to close this out. First of all, is there anything else you'd like to share? Just take maybe a minute to think through what we've discussed, if there's anything you want to bring up.
Um, I I think the biggest thing that
hmm
because it's really helped me is that the don't focus on the hardest parts of doing anything, just start it.
hmm
It will never, because your first time doing anything will never be as good as you want it.
hmm
And so it's better just start it and learn as you go rather than waiting another day,
hmm
because that another day turns into another month.
Yes. And another month can turn into a year can turn into a decade, and people look back, and this is why midlife crises is a term, right? People have midlife crises because they look back on their life and they realize they somehow took the path that wasn't in alignment with their values, and momentum kept carrying them forward. They went with the flow, they were a leaf in the wind, and now they don't know where they've ended up, but they know that
Yeah.
it's not where they want to be. And
Yes.
so now
And
they
I
need
mean,
to restructure.
I've been really struggling with that. So as I come to terms with that,
hmm
it's just really helping me. And I'm actually getting to do some of the stuff I really want to do.
I really appreciate you sharing your story because you just answered my final question, but I'll ask it anyway, which is, do you have any advice for people who are struggling to do the things day to day that will take them towards their dreams, right? That they want to make the extraordinary choices as ordinary humans, that they know they want to fulfill their potential on a daily basis, but they don't know how to start. Do you have any additional insight to add there?
Just don't try and be perfect your first time.
hmm That's it. Okay,
It's
perfect.
too much pressure,
It is too much pressure. And we tend to pressure ourselves far more than society or other
Yes.
people do, right? We're our
Yes.
own worst critics. I highly recommend anyone listening check out Stephen Pressfield's The Resistance book. Carter, I recommend that to you too as well.
Okay.
I've not read the book, but I've heard about it so much that I probably should. I've heard about from Brene Brown, from Seth Godin, from other people. They talk about the resistance, fighting the resistance, being a creative. So yeah, I look forward to having you on the podcast again. Thank you so much for joining and sharing your story.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, have a great day.
You as well.
Bye, everyone.